to Satsang. I'm the host and the Satsang leader, I guess you could call it. I'm not really sure what the name is. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank especially the people from the Shri and Kira show who may be hanging out to expand and make that larger their spiritual inquiry on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Um, so very happy to be here with you all. The name of the show today is turn up the volume. I've been on my phone, two laptops, can barely hear on all of them. Okay. Cranking the volume up a little bit. I hope that's okay for the folks at BBS. Get they sounded okay. Facebook says okay, so just keep posting if the sound isn't good. The name of the show today is Who Am I Really? 2 weeks ago, I did a show called You Are Not the Person. And then last week, of course, I was at an event, so I couldn't do the show. And so I thought it'd be an excellent thing to pick up on that theme of not being the person. Well, if I'm not this person, if I'm not all the things that I think I am, well, then who am I? And I always put this question out, and people explain to me a bunch of stuff, and they tell me about themselves. I mean, tell me what they do, where they live, where they're from, what they believe. And I go, well, that's all really well and good, but that's all, extra equipment. That was all added later, right? Who are you? Before the education, before any degrees, before you chose a career, before any of these things, who are you? It's such a probing question, and we don't give it enough time. We don't really go into the uncertainty about it, the not knowingness in it. We're very quick to try to get to an answer. And the answer really lies inside of us, because we can't define ourselves by what we do, where we are, what degrees we have, where we've been, the people we know, the things we know. We can't. I mean, let's look at it. Everybody here that's listening to me is smart, probably educated, done more than one thing in your life. Anybody here, your life could have gone in a million different directions. Maybe you're an accountant, and with a slightly different set of circumstances 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you might have been an astrophysicist, or you might have been a musician. Any one of the things that you could do could have taken root and become the thing that you do. But let's say you're an accountant now, right? So you kind of think like an accountant, you kind of act like you do accountant things. People ask you, what do you do? And you're an accountant, and you're all the ins and outs, parties, people want to ask your advice on taxes and things like that. Or, maybe you drive a truck, right? And, so all the routes, all this stuff. The thing is that the things we do repetitively, we tend to begin to act like it. We begin to, that's why truck drivers act like truck drivers and lawyers seem to act like lawyers. I once, a long time ago, saw the most marvelous article in a newspaper. Yeah, back when newspapers, we actually held them in your hands and stuff. And it was this, and you know how long ago, because it was a guy who worked at one of the card manufacturers in Detroit. So it was a very long time. That's when people still had good jobs in Detroit, and it really was still the center of industrial manufacturing. And anyway, this guy, he was there his whole life. He'd been working there 15 years, 20 years, something like that. And he just got really tired of wearing the same stuff every day and getting dirty. He's working on the line. So one day he says, forget it, I'm going to be somebody else. And he starts showing up wearing suits, all these nice clothes, and he's really decked out with hats. And the picture I saw him, he's actually working on the line at a car manufacturer in a white suit. He got so conscious of it that he'd actually go through the whole day and not get dirty. He became much more mindful about what he was doing. It was really quite remarkable. But the whole thing was because he just didn't want to be that. He was doing it, but something in him was saying, you're way more than that. Now, look, if you can do any one of a number of things, You can. I mean, maybe your circumstances don't allow it. Maybe you've got commitments and stuff. Maybe it's not, you can't just switch careers in midstream. I get that, but you could, right? You could very easily get to the same level of mastery as somebody in a completely different role, and you might actually start thinking, acting, and being like that. So you're a doctor, right? So I'm a doctor, and all of a sudden you become, you know, I know, become a spiritual teacher, right? So now you're a spiritual teacher, and you think like a spiritual, and you act like a spiritual. People ask you, ask about you. Oh, this is what I do. Now, the important point is that if you could do any of those things, and any of it, dozens upon dozens, maybe hundreds of things, you could have done and could have happened had circumstances in your life been slightly different. If you could be any of those, then none of those can define you. None of those are you. So who is the one that is there that decides to take the form? Who's the form, or this formlessness that takes a shape and becomes this person, this deal, whatever it is? We never think about that. We just kind of move from one thing to another, one role to another. We move in and out of them. One minute, I'm a father, and now I'm a grandfather, and I'm a friend, I'm a teacher. Sometimes I'm a student, right? I was just been studying sutras by the Buddha. I'm a student, right? When I'm studying those. And I go back and forth between them, and I don't think anything of it. So who am I that I'm moving back and forth between all of those roles? That's the question to ask. That is the question that should really engage our attention. It should really just kind of absorb us. We go, wow, who is that? Who are you really? Well, before I start taking questions, and they're already beginning to compound, I want to give you a little taste of what that is. A little taste of what it is to be nobody, to be something, some completely indefinable thing that moves in and out of forms with ease. And to do that, it's really very, very simple. It's very, very simple exercise. You simply put your attention on the fact that you exist. If I ask you a question, do you exist? Are you? I kind of doubt anybody listening to me would say no, right? Yeah, you are. Yes, you exist, right? Are you aware of the fact that you exist? Now, this may seem philosophical or out there, but trust me, it's really, really significant. When I ask the question, are you aware of your existence? And of course you are, otherwise you couldn't say you existed. When I asked that question, before you said yes, where did you look? What was it inside of you that confirmed both you exist and you're aware of that existence? Now, some people might be tempted to say, well, I have this body and I'm sitting in this room and stuff, but you're aware of the body, of the room, of the experience, of my voice. Right? You're aware of that. Look at the awareness, not what you're aware of. Is there any doubt at all that you're aware? Of course, the answer is no, there isn't any doubt. But it's not like an object you can point at. It's not like a thing and say, well, there I am over there. Because if you did that, of course, you'd be looking at something over there, and I'd ask, well, who is it that's aware of that over there? Just the awareness. Without any adornment, without anything extra, without anything laid on top of it. Before you are anybody, this is here. If anything qualifies for what I am, it's that. Now, isn't that there before any of the conditioning takes place? You know, all the stuff that we all like to complain about all the conditioning we have and the self-sabotage and the unconscious patterns and all the blocks I've got in my life and my chakras are all messed up and I can't visualize worth a damn. Before any of that, you're aware. And in fact, all of those, the programmed responses and the blocks and failure at visualization and the chakra spinning in the wrong direction or something, you're aware of all of those. Something is aware of all of those. They don't exist out in space by themselves. They exist in your awareness. Awareness is where the buck stops. Now, is awareness something that you are aware of? Is there like two awarenesses? There's like one, there's the awareness, and then I'm here and I'm aware of that awareness. Is that awareness not you? Whatever it is, let's not put a name on it. Let's not put a form on it. Let's not put any definition. Let's not put any spiritual language on it. We don't know what it is. But isn't that you? Are you different from that? Could you be? That is the answer to the question, who am I? You're that. And look, it's very simple, isn't it? It's very direct. It's very present. It's like right here. It's unmistakable. It's always there. It's always been there. It just doesn't have a lot of fanfare. It has no adornment. It doesn't make a lot of noise. There's no special effects, right? It's just presence. That is, by the way, what Eckhart Tolle refers to as presence. It's just this simple awareness. And everything happens there. Now, this is not satisfying to your mind. I will tell you that right now. Our minds, the discursive thought or conceptual consciousness, as they call it in Buddhism, needs an object to hold on to. It needs an object to describe. I am a doctor. I am a spiritual teacher. I am a musician. I am out of work. I am in love. I am sad. It needs something to hold on to. Language fails without some kind of an object describing this in terms of that. We've all come to an agreement of what green is, and so we can say that plant is green. It's just the way we're perceiving it, right? But if I don't know any of that, then I'm just having the experience of this. Color means nothing. I'm just experiencing it the way a dog would, right? Or the way a little child would. Just pure awareness with nothing extra added onto it. So your mind, your nervous system, the habits, the programmed responses are going to actually resist this, simply because for most people, even those deeply on the spiritual path, the spiritual quest to find out who they really are, they are, without knowing it, looking for some kind of object. They're looking for something that they can point to and say, I am that. But you can't, because if you say, I am that, I would immediately say, well, okay, there's that. Who are you that says, I am that, that's looking at that is perceiving that is aware of that? Who's that? This is one of the most powerful meditations there is. Actually, Ramana Maharshi said that the simplest and most direct meditation was simply to meditate upon that sense I am, that sense of awareness. Nisargadatta said that after he had met his guru, that every spare minute he had, he spent looking at himself in silence. And what a difference it made. Those are his words. Simply not engaging in the kind of discursive thought of description and what is this, the mind descriptions of it that are valid at a time, we're using them right now. But in that meditation, all of that is let go of. And you keep bringing your attention back to that simple sense of being. And let that unfold to you who you are. And it will eventually answer all the questions the mind has. It will eventually restabilize your nervous system in a completely different place with a completely different center of, of existence around which it orbits, a completely different reference point for living life. But to just do that is what Ramana Maharshi called self-abidance, vichara, or abiding as the self. And just look at it. Is there any place beyond that? If there was, you'd have to be there in order to see it. The buck really does stop here. As simple and as unadorned and even to the mind uninteresting it may seem, that is your true self. So I am now open for questions. Checking on Facebook. People are joining, but no questions. Julia Thomas is here, one of my favorite photographers. Very glad to have you here, Julia and John. Okay, I hear something. Gladiator. Okay, GP. What do you think about subliminals, power of subconscious mind? Some subliminals worked on me. Subliminals are simply messages that bypass the conscious mind. That's all it is. And of course, if you've ever heard my description of how the whole perception works and the like, your conscious mind is actually kind of the last to know. There's all sorts of mechanisms within the nervous system that are processing and filtering information long before it gets to your conscious mind or cognitive part of us. And it only gets there if it's not that important. If it's really important, which means it's a matter of life and death as far as your nervous system is concerned, it's handled before you ever get there. I mean, it happens, right? I gave you an example. A couple of years ago, I was living in Miami, and I was walking down. I don't know what I was doing. I was deep in thought. I was thinking about something, and it was almost like I was kind of in a trance as I was like totally absorbed in something. Then all of a sudden, I realized that I was falling backwards onto the sidewalk. And the moment I was kind of jarred back to where I was and I was falling backwards onto the sidewalk, I realized that I had stepped out in front of a bus. I didn't see it. I knew nothing about it. And when that is the cognitive part of me, got notified that something was wrong, my body had already responded and pulled me out of danger. I literally stepped into the street in front of an oncoming bus, and my body says, no, that's not going to happen. And I just immediately, now, all of that happened so fast that I was really the last one to know. And which is good, because if it had been me, and it was like, come to me, well, what do we do, G? Mush, it would have been over. The show wouldn't have happened. So subliminals are simply an attempt to speak directly to that part of you that processes information before it becomes cognitive, before it becomes some kind of decision or some kind of deliberation. The bulk of the time, they are used for ill. They're used to manipulate you. I mean, advertising does it all the time. There's subliminal messages in everything. There's all, and it's hidden in the words. I mean, not necessarily the uh, silent sounds in the background and stuff like that. Although they'd use it if they could. They use tricks from NLP and hypnotherapy. They use all sorts of things to try to get you to do things that they want you to do. So it's just kind of part of the deal. There's a whole class of people that use that subliminal training for benefiting us, for helping us overcome these patterns and the like, and they're very valuable. Same thing with brain entrainment, and there's a lot of things that are very useful, have a very positive effect when they're used right correctly and they're in the right hands. They have a very powerful and salutary effect on us. The only thing where the only place where I draw a line is when I hear things like brain entrainment or meditate like a Zen monk. Um, the the reproduction in the brain of conditions or patterns that put you into a state of being relaxed is not meditation. Meditation means I am actively involved in that process and I am fully aware and I am sitting with my awareness. The effect of that, the effect that has on the nervous system is the same effect that the subliminals have and that the brain entrainment has. All brain entrainment is doing is simulating the result of meditation. It is not meditation. It is not a shortcut to meditation. And there's only one guy who produces them, John Dupy of iAwake. He's the only one out there who puts out these things that says, look, this is an aid, but you also need to learn to meditate. And if you buy his program, I think it's about $300, which is very extensive, a lot of meditation with brain entrainment material in that. You also get a very large manual on how to meditate, because he understands that it's an adjunct to it. It is not a replacement for it. So I want people to step into the mastery of their life consciously. Consciously. Understand? I want you to be there and know that you're there. The object isn't to just take away the programming of the subconscious mind. That's great. And it's a side effect of coming to see who you really are. Because the only way the functioning of a subconscious mind can go on is if it is anchored in a sense of identity, which is more deep and more subtle than either the conscious or the unconscious or the subconscious minds. That sense of identity is energetic. It's very, very fundamental. It is so fundamental that it'll actually go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. The impulse towards creating an identity rather than simply being that silent awareness. So I always like to point people back there. There's a lot of great tools. I use a lot of them. There's nothing wrong with NLP and hypnotherapy and EFT and all sorts of things, but they're only an aid. It still, as always, remains up to you to step into the role of an inner mastery. And that means a freedom from all aids. You go beyond all of the aids, all of the crutches, all of the tools, and you become completely self-contained and free. So I have a caller on line 1, Ethel Jackson. So go ahead and put her through, Don. Hello.
Hey, G.
Hi there, Ethel.
Am I there?
You are here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All righty. First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much. This is just so amazing. I'm beginning to, I am kind of more in the understanding. I am what I am aware of at any given moment. Just kind of speak to that a little bit. My other question, I want to go back a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure, I don't know if it takes it off the subject or not, but in the chat room, someone asked, I believe it was someone, Andrea, she asked about cancer and inner reconciliation. Mm-hmm. And we kind of ran out of time, so it was never addressed. So I would like to have that. I'd like to have your take on that.
Sure. Let me take the first part of that first, where I'm aware. I am what I'm aware of. That's not accurate. You are the awareness
Okay.
that is aware of everything. Everything comes
Say it
and
again,
goes.
please.
You are the awareness in which everything appears.
Wow.
You are not what you are looking at. How could you be?
Wow.
You're
Okay.
looking at it. but
Wow.
but you can't turn that lens around and look at yourself. And
Got it.
the reason is you're not an object. You're not a form. You are a pure spirit. You are pure consciousness. You are not in this body at all. The body is simply something that has appeared within awareness. And you can verify this directly by just noticing that everything comes and goes, but there's something that isn't coming and going that is registering. It came, it hung out for a bit, and it went. Something's there before it happens, something there during, and something after. And that thing is you. And that never changes. That has never come and gone. And don't take my word for it, just look. Has it ever
Right.
not been there? What you have been aware of has changed dramatically. Bears what is not now bears no resemblance to what it was when you're 5 years old, but has the awareness of it been any different?
Mm. Wow.
That is the real you. That's real being. That is the changeless one. That is the Buddha. That in religious terms, that's God, the one being, the being behind all being, the one, the great I am.
Mm.
Now, let's take up the other question. And in a forum like this, I've got to be careful about what I say, a public forum, when I talk about illnesses and using something like inner
Yeah.
reconciliation. I'm not a doctor, so everything I have to say that may be taken as some kind of medical advice, it isn't. I cannot give medical advice, and I would never tell anybody not to get it. But I have a very different perspective. My perspective is that it is our sense of self, our sense of identity, and our belief in ourselves as being purely just material beings in a material body that is the actual cause of disease. That all disease, which is simply a dis-ease, not being at ease, something not functioning the way it's supposed to be, is also something that is simply appearing and disappearing in awareness. And that awareness is never ill. It is never overwhelmed by what it's experienced, any more than space is overwhelmed by having galaxies and universes in it. Now, that said, there is a ton of evidence, psychological and medical, that the emotional state of a person is a key ingredient as to whether or not they will recover from an illness or not. And that's not my opinion. That's documented fact. That's why they teach meditation to cancer patients. All sorts of these techniques to help people reduce the level of stress and the level of fear. I could go off on a whole bunch of things like nutrition, the way we live our life, the pollution in the air. There's all sorts of contributing factors that we live in a very toxic environment. But if you can grasp the idea that to be completely unified and harmonious within yourself is to be without fear, to move through all of the conflicts that we have with ourselves, and all of the emotional overhead of, somebody gets ill and they blame themselves. I'm attracted this into my life, or I did all these stupid things, whatever it might be. If all of that can just be put to the side, you can just be with this, be with the being. No more judgments, no more stuff on top of it. On top of it, just being present totally with it, open and accepting and full of unconditional love, you will create the perfect environment in which healing can occur. And in fact, again, my opinion, illness is created by being out of sync with yourself. It is created by inner hatred, by a lack of self-acceptance. all of the behaviors that we would point at are a lack of self-acceptance. All addictions, all the bad habits, all the things we do and know we shouldn't be doing, all the things we don't do and think and know we should. It's all the result of parts of us clinging to a sense of ourselves that is not really serving us. But you can't just force that to go away. You must turn to it very loving and very kindly. That's what inner reconciliation is all about. It is just coming back to yourself with an attitude of total love and acceptance. Even if the self you're coming back to in this moment is really pretty messed up, the human you is just a real disaster. To come to that place, knowing that nobody's a disaster by accident, nobody chooses it. Just all sorts of conditions come into play that put you into a position that give you a proclivity for getting ill. If you can remove those conditions that put you in the proclivity, you remove the proclivity. And if you remove the proclivity, you have basically made yourself strong, really unassailable. And then you just be with yourself in the most loving way. And I don't want to undersell these things, because people going through something as serious as cancer, and it's really, they make a big deal out of it, as well they did, get pretty cynical about it, because these things are billion-dollar industries on top of it.
Right.
So I don't want to diminish and say, oh, it's all in your mind, because it isn't, right? It is all in your heart, though. And we cannot live a harmonious life, harmonious in our relationships, harmonious in our activities, harmonious in our creativity, harmonious in our health, if we're in conflict with ourselves. It's really pretty simple to me. Heal the conflict, and then let's see what has to happen.
Well, let me just say what I find interesting about myself. I know illness, I only focus on wellness. I have no concerns about this thing called illness, because it doesn't exist to me. Okay. And I mean, I know that in my experience, and anytime I have any semblance of anything that's out of order physically or appears to be, I remember I'm energy, and it has to do with an energy alignment. So that's where I am personal with this. I have no concerns. I know someone who's going through that, but I have no concerns about that whatsoever. Interestingly enough, it's what I'm reconciling now is that I see illness as an illusion. Not that it's not real, but I know that I can change my thinking. And if I focus on wellness, that's exactly what I'm going to get. Mm-hmm. Now, there are other areas in my life that I haven't, and I'm allowing that to come into being, that I have not been able to apply that same wisdom, if you will, or insight. But in terms of illness, it does not exist for me. So
why can't you apply it equally everywhere? Who told you it was harder to apply someplace else?
Who, me?
Would you like to change your mind?
Yes.
You've created this scenario here where there's these other places where it isn't working, or that's all just another mind chatter. It's just a different idea. Drop it. It's not true. Mm-hmm. It's not true. There's no place beyond you. You're the center of this. I mean, what's beyond you? It's all you.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I needed to hear you say that, because I know it's foolish. Well, I won't say. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, I know it doesn't.
No, it's not foolish. It's not foolish. This is the way the mind works. The mind categorizes and divides and says, "Oh yeah, but not over here." And some places in us are more aptly or more deeply defended than others. There's parts of us, maybe there's some kind of trauma there or something, that the body's, the nervous system is especially wanting to make sure that it is not, that is protecting, that it's not giving you access to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so it may feel as if that this is more difficult, that there's some more resistance to it. And then your mind will say, well, this is really a tough one. You're not going to have, and it's just going to make up some reason to keep you from doing exactly the same thing. What's the difference? If it's an itch or if it's a broken arm, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
In its
it is.
essence, it is exactly the same thing. Only our mind makes one more significant than another.
Yeah,
And so it's not true.
yeah. It's not.
So
Yeah.
don't believe it. Don't believe your mind.
Thank
After awakening, your mind becomes your friend. Before awakening, it is not your friend. It is the servant of the defensive posture. And it will do everything to dissuade you, to distract you, to intimidate you, to keep you from shining that light of pure awareness on the part of you that is distressed. It's not that it's trying to hide it or mess your life. It's simply trying to protect an area that's very tender.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a lot of tender spots.
Wow.
And our nervous system has done a very good job at cordoning those places off and keeping them protected. And especially, childhood things that happen, or get diminished or made small or suffer in some kind of way. We just don't want to go back there.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
So,
Wow.
so
That's,
if you just continue to turn your attention towards it in complete love and acceptance, even the mind going and say, yes, I know what you're doing. It's okay. Thank you for doing your job. And you just keep your focus of unconditional acceptance on that energy.
yeah.
There is no defense against unconditional love. There just isn't.
Wow.
The armor will eventually come off. The walls of Jericho will fall down.
Okay. I believe you.
Thank you, Ethel.
Oh, thank you, G. This is wonderful. All righty.
Great, thank you.
That'll do it for me.
Good. All righty. And anybody else wants to call in, 888-627-6002. And you'll be Don. Well, man, Don will let me know that you're there. Let's see, what's your question here? Let's see, I'm assuming everybody can hear. That was from Marlene. Indus River. Hey, GP, my favorite topic. Who am I? In this quest, I have a question. Did Ramana Maharshi consider the Arunchula, I always pronounce it, hill, as his own mind ego? So in a way he could imagine he could conquer his mind. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, Indus. He had an enormously high regard for the energy of Arunachala. But at the same time, he was an absolute master of Vedanta, and he knew Vedanta. I keep saying Vedanta, I don't know why. Vedanta, and he knew for a fact that nothing was separate from him, and he said that himself. He knew that he was the one I. And so everything you experience is exactly the same thing that Ramana experienced, or Nisargadatta, or Christ, or Buddha. They simply did not identify with what they were looking at. Buddha says that the entire world is a projection of the mind, just nothing but mind. That is what everything boils down to in Buddhism. I mean, there's a whole bunch of teachings that he made, which he himself referred to as lesser teachings. They were simply a preparation to get to the place where whatever you are experiencing is like the image on a screen. It is being projected out of the state of the mind. And when your mind is purified and it settles into the pure land of the Buddha, which is Ramana Maharshi lived, then that mind then it becomes the pure mirror of the absolute. Those are Buddha's words too. The pure awareness, the pure mind becomes a mirror of the absolute. And now the mind and consciousness become one. The mind is simply awareness in its active state. but it's always doing that. It's just that when we believe ourselves to be a person, a small, limited, finite form, instead of recognizing that we are the awareness, that energy of that belief in ourselves as being limited creates an image in the mind of a limited being. And then we feel we want to get over it, right? We want to get out of it. We do everything we can to get out of it. But the key is that you were never in it in the first place. You don't put an end to suffering by changing all the circumstances. You put an end to suffering by realizing the sufferer doesn't exist. The sufferer is only an image in your mind, and you are not that image. You couldn't be. You're the one looking at it. By definition, whatever you're looking at is not you. You're the one looking. That's why it's so important to understand who you really are. Because when you think you are this limited mortal person, that is what you will experience. The mind will dutifully create images of that and show you exactly what you expected. When that's watered down, when that's diluted down into a kind of a populist teaching, they call it the law of attraction. Whatever I'm thinking, I experience. Wherever I vibrate, that's what I'm experiencing. That is true. But this is why. This is the real law behind it. It's not a genie of the universe, and it's not a law in the universe. It is the nature of consciousness itself to manifest itself, and it manifests whatever's there. It's completely neutral about it. It doesn't really care. It has no judgment about the quality of it. So if you know who you are, the manifestation now is the pure mirror of reality. And when that happens, that's what you're called a sage. You're a Ramana or a Buddha or something like that. So I hope that answers your question in this. He didn't conquer his mind at the other part of your question here. And so in this way, he could conquer his mind. He conquered his mind when he was 16 years old. He was fully and totally awakened. He was a Bhagavan at that moment. And when he went to Arunachala, he just simply sat in a cave for 2 years, and they eventually found him and built an ashram in it. And he started talking. He didn't speak for like 5 years. So it was a completely different thing. When he came there, he had already gone beyond the mind. So, is there a place for why I exist in the real reality? That's from Kidnapped. That's very interesting. Let me put it this way. What have I got? The why is always the mind looking for a cause to whatever is happening now. And it looks for that cause mostly because it wants to change what's happening right now. So, okay, if this is why this happened, then if I change this, I'm going to get a different result. Again, this is what the law of attraction is based on. These things are coming into my life. If I change my thinking and my feeling, these things are going to change. And on a certain level, it's true. But the why do you exist only can arise when there is time and events and cause and effect. To the absolute, there's no time, there's no events, and there's no cause and effect. Why does something happen? You could ask the question, and this is a great way of looking at it. When you're looking at the picture on the screen, on your computer, that picture is constantly changing, right? And you're experiencing it. Could be a story, it could be a great story, it could be a romantic comedy, it could be a love affair, it could be a documentary. This story is going on. And in our minds, we say that this event happening here is because of something that happened, 3 minutes ago in the prior scene. But when you actually look at what's actually happening, the projection is just a series of images that are being generated in the real time. And the why, the whole story, the whole cause of effect is only in the mind. It isn't in the pictures at all. in the realm of pure timelessness, there is no cause and effect. Everything you are experiencing is being generated in real time right now. No past and no future. It is a direct expression of whatever your leading beliefs and feelings and thoughts are in this moment. I mean, this even holds true of things that appear to be recurring. It's only because we believe them to be. We believe that because something happened in my past that I have this problem now. No, you have this problem now because you believe that there's a reason for it to be here, and that reason is somewhere in the past. But it is that belief in the event in the past that is creating the energy that is making it happen right now. It's the belief in it and not the event that is creating the circumstances. Why? The answer to why am I? Why do I exist? I don't like to completely take it away, because obviously you can look at it from a very relative, from a very personal human point of view. You know, why does this particular body, I seem to be designed to do this, voice for it. I got the interest in it. I've got the, that I was really interested in all the subjects. So, somebody else is, 6'5" and really good at sports. They're a basketball player. It seems as though certain things lend themselves to certain activities. And one could say, well, it's kind of inevitable. Mozart wrote, started writing music when he was 3. I mean, it's kind of, it looks like that's what, why this one's here. But when we go into the pure place of awareness that has no beginning and no end, the why does it exist is moot, because it never didn't exist. It always was. So why is no longer relevant. It just is. Before all time, before all space, it is. Before Abraham was, I am. It simply is. So there's no cause to it. It's very important, because the ultimate spiritual attainment of full awakening or enlightenment is not an event that is caused. It is an awakening to what has no cause, what is always, what is forever. Even forever is the wrong term. It's timeless. So I hope that answers your question. So on an individual level, I encourage people to say, well, why? And the answer to that question is, well, what am I most drawn to? What means the most to me? What values to me? But recognize that those are all relative. Those are changing. What means something to you now is not going to mean something to you 5 years ago. And it's not the same as what was 10 years ago. So that is changing too, albeit more slowly. So why am I here? Right now, it's to do this. 15 minutes from now, I can't really say. But right now, this is it. This is why I'm here. Right? But when I ask that question existentially, I say, there is no why. I just am. Hope that answers it. And let's see. We've got about 10 minutes. We're good. John Q, how can I discover that the person is just an image? It feels like my name is synonymous with the face in my head, the owner of the body. Great question, John. The answer is inquiry. Allowing an inquiry. Allowing is a retraining of the nervous system to be able to not fight with itself, to be able to be present with all the feelings and all the stuff that's going on, so that you're in a state of allowing. You're in a state of, I call it the yoga of allowing, where you're no longer fighting, where you don't have resistance. You're not trying to make yourself feel differently than you are. And when you get comfortable with that, you can begin to inquire directly. Right? Look, everything that you think of as yourself is an image in your mind. And if it's an image, there's something looking at it. Is the image isn't looking at itself. So whatever is looking, that's you. Now the question is, the image may be a very good one, but it's just an image. How do I see myself directly? Of course, in that seeing, the person, you're not going to see the person anymore. You're just not going to fall for it. You can't believe it any longer. But it becomes a matter of inquiry. Remember, the habit of identifying with this person is very strong. It was pounded into you from the get-go when you were very young, starting first with your gender. You're a little boy, you're a little girl. Right? You're a girl, you're a boy, you're a girl, you're a boy. Everything about it was pounding that into you. And then your name, and then your relationships, and what you could do and what you couldn't do. It was all creating in the little mind a picture of who I am. And so it's got a lot of energy and momentum behind it. So don't be surprised when you challenge it that it immediately associates that name and that image with me. If I say, well, who's saying that? You say, I am. It doesn't even pause for a second. So we've got to insert the pause. And when you insert the pause, that's the inquiry. I say, well, look, what is aware? And isn't there something aware of all of those images? Something seeing that. And that thing which is seeing that, can you see it? That is, can the perceiver perceive itself? Can the eye see itself? No, the answer is it can't. And so self-knowledge, knowing yourself not as the person, becomes intuitive. You have no doubt that you exist and that you're aware that you exist. That information is not coming from looking at an image. It's coming from your direct experience of being. That being is not a person. And you can tell because every time you think of the person, it's an image being perceived by it. The perceiver is not a person. It is pure, infinite consciousness, the one I am. That's how you do it. I look forward to seeing how that the result of that, and be vigilant about it. Be vigilant about it. No, I'm habitually thinking that that's me, but it's not. It can't be me. I'm looking at it. If I can perceive it, it can't be me. By definition, subject and object. And that goes for the most subtle thoughts, feelings, and sensations. They're all being experienced by something. And that something is not in any of the thoughts, feelings, or sensations. Trying to get to all the questions here. Let's see. Can mind chatter or story to be changed? Can mind chatter or story to be changed completely? Since I was never able to change it completely, maybe the key is IR with the chakras. Storytelling seems to be the key to the manifestation. Story is not real me, but is who I really am, able to see all stories. So it does mean that stories are still there. The only problem is you're analyzing this way too much. Okay. Stories going on. That's what the mind does. The storyteller is a part of our function. We all love it. We all love good books. We love stories. We love mirrors or movies. We love it. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. Just don't mistake it for who you are. That's all. There's a couple of a key story that gets formed, which is the story of I, that's formed very early on, and it goes through different phases in the life. But there's some basic assumptions about it. Gender, ethnicity, and all of that. I am this. And the number one assumption is I am the body. That is the number one assumption. And everything I've been telling you is that you're not. The body is an experience that is appearing in awareness, and it is not who you are. It is experienced. It is not the one having the experience. All sorts of stories and ideas about who you are get formed. Don't believe them. It's that simple. Don't seek to change them. Because if you're seeking to change them, it's just a different story that says, there's a better story that I want more. I like that story. I like the story the guy has got dates supermodels and has all the has the mansion and 10 million bucks. That's just a different story, also coming from the storyteller. Go to the place of pure awareness and let your identity sink there. Then the storyteller won't matter, won't confuse you. You just be the play of imagination. And there's nothing wrong with that when it's innocent. There's nothing wrong with that when you don't believe that's who you are. The moment you believe it's who you are stuck with it. The walls come in, they surround you, and now you are limited by your own perceptions, your own belief in somebody that you're not really. And just changing that to a better belief is good. Obviously, dysfunctional to functional is a big improvement, but it is not the truth. The truth is you are beyond all stories. All stories appear, they come and go to you. So you are not any of them. And that means you can move freely throughout the world, becoming who you need to be, being playing all the different roles and playing them fully, never mistaking for a minute that you're any of those roles. 5:53, let's see. All righty. Just check it all out here. Story Beat Chatter. Okay, let me check over on Facebook to see if I have exhausted the list here. No questions over on Facebook. You're a quiet crowd over there. I don't know what's up with you guys. You just sit over there very skulking. So as I begin to wrap this up, waiting for Don to tap me on the shoulder, saying that the time is up for the show. I hope you'll. First off, I've got a class coming up. I got it. gpwalsh.com/meditate. I'm going to be doing a show. I'm going to be doing an online retreat. There'll be 4 2-hour sessions of pure meditation. The first one is free. So if you go to gpwalsh.com/meditate, you can register. The first one is free. And then after that, you can purchase the additional 3. Also a special offer to get into inner reconciliation if you haven't done that. But the first step, as I always teach, is to come to that place of allowing. That's what meditation really is. The place of total self-acceptance. And when you do, the rest really does become easier. Inquiry is actually the second step in reconciliation. Invite is the first, where you just are purely with who you are. That's it for today. I hear the music playing in the background, and I got my little tap on the shoulder. I want to thank you all for being here as always. You're wonderful. The questions just really touch me. They are deep and thoughtful, and I do love doing this. And that is the only reason I do it, is because this is, it's just so fulfilling. So thank you all, and I will see you next week.
I am connected to a vast network that has been beyond your reach and experience. To humans, it is like...
All right.